Hey, this is Troy from Planet 76. We've got some really good Sixers-focused content coming your way today. Make sure you subscribe to the pod so you can be in the know when we release new content. Enjoy the show.
Welcome, everyone, to Planet 76. What we just established is episode... Wait, what did we say? Episode 105?
104. Close.
104. Whatever. My name is Michael. Troy, as always. The off-season is... What is it? What is a good word in place of the word slow?
I was thinking dry.
Moving at a snail's pace, dry... boring, whatever stagnant, whatever choice adjective you'd like to use, but we're going to try and get some things rolling on this episode. So make sure you guys subscribe to the podcast. You know the drill. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Twitter. We're on Threads as well. Threads has been kind of taking a hit lately, but if you're interested, drop us a follow. That's it.
For sure. For sure, yeah. So it is certainly in the height of the dry, stagnant, whatever period. As we close out August, things will be ramping up here soon-ish, of course, as we head into September and October. But I will say, it's interesting when it's dry when the most notable thing to happen this week that we're really not even going to touch on is like a Ben Simmons quote about Philadelphia.
We're not doing it. I'm not saying a word. You can say something if you want to, but I'm not saying it.
No need.
I am not mumbling a phrase about that.
No need. I am with you there. I just think it's interesting that is the news this week. Like, that's how boring it is, where that's what's making news. Anyway, I will say, too, that one of the things that you did to give us some content for this episode was reach out or post on Trust the Love and Planet about just some content, get some questions. So it'll be a little bit of a shorter episode, a mailbag episode, if you will, tonight, and we'll get into some of those questions. So I don't know if you have that pulled up. I do.
I don't, but I pretty much remember what they were. There's only a few.
Okay. Right. So, there's like 3 or 4 we'll get into. And, where do you want to start with that?
And I do want to say, shout out to the people who sent questions in. Obviously, it was on my shirt. Obviously, it wasn't a requirement or anything, but if you want it to be featured in the episode, you're featured. So, we're glad to have some people send some questions, but... honestly, whatever you want to start with, because I'm pretty much indifferent to what we start with. So
we'll take this one from Mike R_117.
He's been. Me and him have had a lot of conversations. So if he's listening, shout out to Mike.
Yes, sir.
He's been very what's the word? Like keeping up with my page and the podcast and everything.
He's loyal.
Shout out to Mike. Yes, definitely. So shout out to Mike if he's listening.
Yeah, shout out to Mike and shout out for this question. It's a good one. So he asked about the younger players on the current Sixers team and who we can see making the biggest leap from last year into the season that is 2023-2024. So who comes to mind when you think of a young player that's going to take a big leap?
I really have my sights set on Jaden Springer. He's been with the team since 2021. He was drafted in 2021. He's 21 years old, I believe. And from what we've seen, which hasn't been a ton in the actual NBA, he's been G League, Summer League, everything. Open runs with other players, everything except what we really want to see, which is him with the Sixers. But this year could be the year. Who knows? Maybe he cracks the rotation. I'm not sure he will to begin the year. Because even though the Sixers' depth isn't great, I'm still not confident enough yet in him breaking the rotation. But I really like Springer. I guess he's a guard. I mean, he's 6'4", I believe. So
yeah,
from a physical standpoint, he's probably a guard, but I could see him playing in terms of, oh my gosh, he's only 20 years old. Wow, okay. In terms
Seems
of
like
the
he's
way,
been here longer, right?
yeah, that's what he was drafted at 18, which is nuts. In 21, shout out to Daryl Morey again. But yeah, I could see him at least defensively. I could see him defending some bigger players, maybe some wing players. He's very physical. He's quick. He seems to be pretty strong for being a little undersized as an NBA player. I really like his athleticism on both sides of the floor. From what I've seen, he can jump out of the gym. Good handle as well. He can get to the rim very well. I know the jumper isn't quite there yet, but I think it's... I mean, I can't even really speak on that, but I think it's coming along. Because, again, he's only 20 years old. I can't sit here and say, oh, I can't be hypercritical of the kid. He's 20. And again, he hasn't had... He's had barely any real NBA run. So I can't be too critical of him. And from what I've seen, I think he has a really high ceiling, especially defensively, like I mentioned. I think he could be not a Matisse type defensively. Well, I could see a little bit of Matisse in that, and the way he gets around the court, the way he kind of pesters the opposing team's ball handlers and things like that. But I am very high on Springer. Again, I want to emphasize defensively. The offense is coming along, but very high on Springer defensively, so I'm very much looking forward to the steps he makes this season. Because this season, like I said, he could kind of maybe make some noise into the rotation, whether it be if a guy's injured, he could be the next guy up, like if Beverly misses a couple games or something like that, or even if, I mean, the Sixers' backup small forward is going to be Daniel House. Maybe he misses some games. Maybe Springer gets thrown into the three. Because, again, it all comes down to Nick Nurse. He's not afraid to try things. Maybe he runs a three-guard lineup with Melton, Beverly, Springer. Yeah. And I'm not going to lie to you. That's a pretty... If you're the other team, if you're the opposing team, that's a pretty... maybe not menacing defensive lineup, but definitely an intimidating defensive lineup because they can definitely cause some trouble for you.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree. I mean, as far as even, young guys, I mean, he's 20.
Yeah.
So he is the guy that
he's
comes
the
to mind.
young guy.
He is. And it's such an interesting thing because, one, we know he's young. So obviously we knew he was drafted young. And typically when you think of guys that, get drafted after 1 year at the college level, they're like, top 5, 10 picks who immediately start impacting their franchise. Like the Sixers took Springer, late first round. And I don't think it's not like a thing where it's like, oh, he just hasn't performed yet and we're waiting on it. Like they picked him with the potential in mind of, this could be a couple years. So you just have to wonder when they think it's time to give him a chance. Like he just hasn't had an opportunity yet. You touched on it. And I think you make some valid points that this could be the time when it happens this year. Given just their bench depth, given the fact that Nick Nurse is now at the helm, I think he's going to get a shot. And so, when you characterize it as far as improvement, it might not be as much of his improvement, but it just might be he's going to get more time to show what he can do. And you like to hope that the last couple of years have benefited him in his just development as a player. A couple of years going from 18 to 20 in the league, in the G League, whatever. Like he's learned about professional basketball, and you like to see what he can do. I mean, in the very, 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 very limited time we've seen him on the court for the Sixers, we've seen some of that potential. It would just be nice to see him get some runs where, he's with the other starters other core players of the team, playing 20, 25 minutes a night sometimes, just to see what he's got. And I think he's going to get that opportunity. So I think that's a good call. And really the only other two young guys, and I'll get your thoughts on them, obviously, whatever's going to happen with James Harden kind of influences what we think about Tyrese Maxey, because without Harden and, if Harden's sitting out or whatever's going to happen there, Tyrese Maxey is going to be asked to do a lot. So he's made improvements every single year, and he's only 22 years old. Think about that. That's kind of crazy to think about. But he's another young guy, and then Paul Reed. These guys have already made improvements in the league. We've seen their potential. We've seen what they can do. We've seen playoff performances where they play very well. But what are your thoughts on those two? Maybe a little bit about how Nick Nurse helps them. Maybe just about how their roles are going to be enhanced as they continue to mature in the league.
Maxey and Reed.
Yeah.
I will say, just as a kind of precursor to my actual thoughts, we should just straight up do a Maxey and Reed episode. Maybe at the end, maybe mid-September or end of September leading up to training camp. I think that'd be pretty cool.
I'm down.
But yeah, it's we've already seen a lot of improvement rapidly from both of these guys.
Right.
So it's just
Is there another gear?
Yeah, I think so. I think for Maxey, he can. I think he will take that all-star leap. It's not going to be a massive leap because right now I think he's all-star level. It's just the East is very deep in terms of the guard talent in that conference, so he's not going to get a ton of recognition, but I think he's going to get to that, okay, Maxey can actually make the all-star team. He can be an all-star. Maybe this year, end of this year kind of thing. And with Paul Reed, and speaking of Paul Reed, I don't know if he counts because he's 25, but a lot of people haven't been talking about Mo Bamba. I low-key forgot the Sixers had Mo Bamba, but so I might be kind of a hypocrite here, but that's somebody that maybe we could talk about after this if you want to, of course. But
right.
I think that's as an interesting layer to this team. But Paul Reed, I have had nothing but good things to say about Paul Reed. You as well. We are a Paul Reed podcast at the end of the day, and I have, even though he's kind of older, I think he's 24.
He's 25, and Reed turned 24 this year.
Okay.
24 in June.
So Paul Reed's 24, not the youngest of young, but up until a player gets to about 25-ish, I'll consider them decently young talent. And with Paul Reed, I think that window gets kind of extended because he hasn't really become the player he is until this year. I mean, this was the year where we really started seeing him break out and become just so many things. I mean, he's become very good at so many things. He's become a great defender. He's an elite rebounder, especially at his size. Offensively, he's shown a lot of promise. He's shown he can handle the ball a little bit. He's shown he can run pick and roll, catch lobs, cut to the rim. These are all really valuable things, and for him to be doing this all at a really high level at the age he's at is really promising. And the Sixers just got him back on a 3-year deal. I don't know what he can be in terms of his ceiling, but I know that whatever that player becomes is going to be a really, really good player, especially defensively. Because I talked about it a couple months ago when the Sixers re-signed Paul Reed. He's the perfect modern-day, forward/big man, even though he's 6'8", 6'9", a little undersized to be a center, but he can do everything at least on defense, but offensively he can do so many things. So versatile offensively and defensively. And when you have a backup center like that, or backup power forward, depending on if he plays with Mo Bamba or not, you need him to be able to do that. And he can do so many things. And I think that's so valuable. And I'm very much... Nick Nurse is going to be able to help this guy in so many ways. Nick Nurse is going to be able to really, really supercharge his game and allow him and put him in situations where he can succeed, but also help the team too. I'm really excited for that.
Right. Yeah, I think he can help him take it to the next level, Nick Nurse and Paul Reed. When I think of Paul Reed, and I think of as far as just his growth in the league, I immediately think to this time last year when, I can't speak for you, but I was pretty excited. I hate that I have to admit this, and I have before on the podcast. I was pretty excited about the Montrezl Harrell signing last year.
Were, really.
And, because, this was a guy who won Sixth Man of the Year a handful of years ago. And he's not, age-wise, he shouldn't be washed or he shouldn't, whatever. And yet, I didn't necessarily at all expect that Paul Reed was going to be the backup guy, and it wouldn't be Harrell. And I think that just speaks to his development as a player. And I think he'll take he'll make another big leap this year, just because he's still finding his way in the league. We're still learning things about him. We're still seeing him get regular minutes, and I think with the guarantee that he is going to be in the rotation this year, there's absolutely no doubt. Because this time last year we didn't really know with the signings that they made, and it's exciting because I think he's got some still untapped potential. We know what he does defensively. We know how versatile he can be offensively, but to see him put it all together and see him under a new coach who might be able to unlock more of that is really exciting. So I think he's got some room. And then, like I said, Tyrese Maxey's made improvements every year. I think we're seeing the player that, we're going to see. Maybe not, maybe he will make all-star games. Maybe he will, reach all-NBA level at some point. But, I think we've grown used to what we can expect from Tyrese Maxey, and that's a cool thing. And if necessary for him to take more of a lead role offensively, I think he can handle it. And so I'm comfortable with that.
That's what I'm saying.
So
we'll
have to see.
We should do an episode on these guys individually. They're just such interesting players, but for a lot of different reasons. We just touched on a few of them, but I feel like that'd be pretty interesting. Let us know if you're listening, watching up to this point. Let us know if you want to see that. I think that'd be pretty cool. We might do it anyway, regardless of what you say. But
regardless if you want us to, that would be fun. A couple more, or one other question that was a fun one, but I find very interesting since I was just in Philadelphia. As you know, some of our listeners know, I am from Long Island, about 2.5, 3 hours away from downtown Philly, but I got to spend some time in downtown Philly a couple weeks ago to end the summer, and it was a lot of fun. But this person asked, Global Freeze said he wants a cheesesteak review. Which ones are good and which ones are touristy? Now, Michael, you've spent probably more time in Philly than I have, considering, how far are you from, downtown Philly?
On a good day, probably 25 minutes, probably.
Right. So
with
you're
traffic,
right there.
Though, probably 45.
Yeah, who knows?
Right.
But, so you've had some experience with cheesesteaks,
yeah,
yes? No?
So.
Do you have a favorite spot?
I do. It's funny because, there are some of the best spots down there, but some of the best spots aren't down there.
On the outskirts.
There's a spot right near me. It's just a deli, but they make cheesesteaks. It's the best cheesesteak I've ever had.
Okay,
and they only exist in this spot near my house. They're nowhere else. The spots downtown, there's a few I haven't had, but the main ones Gino's is good. Pat's is good. Yeah. It's those.
So I went.
Did you hit any?
Oh yeah. So we had to. It was we spent really just 24 hours there in Brighton Philly, downtown and got a cheesesteak at Sonny's.
Oh really? Okay, I've never heard of Sonny's.
So Sonny's was down.
Where are you at?
It was we did all the touristy things. We went down by Independence Hall, Liberty Bell. Because I never really did all that, and it was fun. It was really cool to be in there in Philly, in the city. And then we went to Sonny's. We just looked up, cheesesteak spots, and there's a million of them. So we hit that one. We didn't hit Gino's. I've had Gino's before.
Yeah. It's good, right? It's good.
Yeah. Sonny's was very good. I was impressed. It was so good. I got a T-shirt. Okay, let's just I was full tourist mode during that 24-hour period, and it was good. I got. A cheesesteak with bacon and with whiz. I know you have to say it like that. With whiz. It was good.
Nice.
And we will definitely. That's definitely. I haven't had a ton of experience in Philly with cheesesteaks. I've had a few there, like Gino's, but I think Sonny's took the cake.
If you go back, I recommend Tony Luke's. It's very good. I think it's better than Pat's and Gino's. I'm not sure how that will be received by the
if I had
audience,
time, like what I was really hoping to do, you watch like YouTube videos where guys compare all the
Yes.
cheesesteaks. Like you do one for lunch, one for dinner, and then you go to 2 others the next day. That would be the dream. Then you can really compare and contrast between cheesesteaks. But the one I had was very, very good. Very impressed with Sonny's near Independence Hall, Liberty Bell, that area. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled programming. I like this question. I like it a lot. All right, so you got one asking about the Sixers roster construction, where it is right now. Obviously, this question, assuming Harden stays, which we don't know, but who knows? We can assume that for the sake of this question. A.410_ says, does Harden staying plus the additions in the offseason, does that make us contenders?
What do you think?
We've talked about our additions in the offseason. Yeah,
Go
I can
ahead.
start. Now, again, it's hard because it's like this whole Harden thing is just a crazy piece. But so it's hard to like put on your helmet that's going to say, yeah, let's assume he stays. But assuming he does, somehow that just gets repaired. I'm not super thrilled about what the Sixers did this offseason. I certainly don't think it puts us in a better spot than we were last year, and we couldn't get out of the second round last year. So now you go out and get a guy like Mo Bamba and Patrick Beverley, but that's okay, right? And we've kind of voiced that in recent weeks, but I'm also not super crazy about the fact that Daniel House is the backup small forward right now. That we didn't go and get other pieces. Now, a lot of that was waiting for the big domino to fall, and we still are waiting on that potentially in James Harden, but not super thrilled. I mean, it's a long season. You literally don't know what can happen, but if you're asking, if you're assuming that the Sixers weren't quote-unquote contenders last season, like let's just say that this question's assuming that, then I'm also going to say they're not this year. That's my answer.
Whether or not the Sixers trade James Harden, they're not contenders. This is not a team that can win the championship.
As currently constructed.
Even if they trade Harden, unless they're getting Kawhi Leonard in that deal, this team cannot win the championship next year. Now, I hope I'm wrong. I hope Joel Embiid has one of the greatest individual seasons of all time, which, funny enough, he had the last 2 years, but that's another topic for another day. I hope Joel Embiid has like a top 10 season ever, and he just says, "Hey guys, I'm taking us to the finals. I'm gonna play 70 games. We're just gonna win.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play every single playoff game," and that's the difference. If Joel Embiid plays in the second round of the playoffs, everything changes. Everything changes. If he plays every game. I mean, if he plays 3 out of 6 and it's a 6-game series. Because this year he played, 4, 5, 6, 7? And he missed. He missed.
So he missed game 1 against Boston. Came back in game 2. It was really just to get his feet under him.
I thought he missed game 2. Either way.
Smacked in game 2.
Either way.
Yeah.
If Embiid can stay healthy for the second round, game changer. But I'm not banking on that.
Right.
I'm not banking on anything. In fact, if you thought I had 0 expectations for the team last year, my expectations are below 0 this year. And I urge everyone to go in with that same approach as well. Because this team is not going to win the championship. I hope I'm wrong. Maybe something changes. I don't know. It's the NBA. It's an 82-game season. There's a lot of crazy things that could happen. But as of today, Wednesday, August 30th at 10:55 p.m. Eastern Time, this team is not a championship contender. And to be honest, it's not really like a historical finding. This isn't something that is not, or at least something that shouldn't be shouldn't be uncommon. It shouldn't be something that is foreign to say or think, because they're a good team. This is a good team, but I don't think they're an elite team. They can be an elite team, But I don't know how confident I am in that right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like what you said. I mean, you gave proper context given, the time and date of where we're at right now. and you said a key there, too, about, just the fact that something could change. And something could change. But as currently constructed, and again, the way I, kind of had to focus in and view it was if you don't count it as a contender last season, then they're not this season. The moves this season, off season, don't excite you too much. And as much as you want to, for the sake of answering that question, ignore what's going on with James Harden, it's kind of hard to do that because we just don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what you're going to get back in return. Like, it's just the question continues to be there, and it's gonna get interesting as we hit September and training camp and preseason ball gets going, and what all is going to happen with that situation. I mean, it's literally, we had the exact same conversations 2 years ago, before the whole Ben Simmons thing was going down. This is part 2 of that, and I will say the Sixers team now. Obviously, before they acquired James Harden and Ben Simmons wasn't playing, that team wasn't a contender, but they did enough to stay afloat. I can't give you the record. They could have
made the conference finals
when they acquired
that
James
year.
Harden. Right.
Like, how crazy is that, man? And they could have made it this year. I'm done. I'm not gonna go there.
You're exactly right, but it's interesting. We don't know what's going to happen. It's a very, very difficult thing to answer, just given what's going on with James and this team. But anyway, thank you all for submitting your questions. We got one other about or desiring for some Sixers nostalgia. Maybe we'll get into that in the future just to reflect. If you haven't already, though, if you're going to talk about nostalgia for the Sixers, you can go and watch or listen back to episode 102, I believe, where Michael and I broke down our favorite Sixers teams of all time, and so that was a lot of fun. So that was a kind of a nostalgic episode there where we reflected on just our personal favorite Sixers and did a draft through that. So that was pretty fun. So you can definitely go listen to that one. And then last, again, the story obviously is this: what's going on with James Harden, and that was our most previous episode. Was episode 103, talking about what's going on between he and Daryl Morey and all of that. There hasn't been a whole lot that's changed since we recorded that, so that is still up-to-date info that you're getting with that episode, so make sure you check that out. Other than that, I think that wraps this one up, episode 104. We'll be back shortly for episode 105 as we inch closer and closer to the season, and we're excited about it here on Planet 76. Make sure you stay in tune with us. Subscribe, whatever platform you're on. Give us a listen. Give us a follow on Instagram, Planet 76 Podcast, so you can be in the know when new episodes are coming out, new content is dropping, and we'll see you next time for episode 105. If you are a Philadelphia 76ers fan, this is the podcast for you. Planet 76, a weekly podcast covering all things Philadelphia 76ers. We'll see you next time.